Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Debbie and I do book reviews. I talk about theatre sometimes, but in this case I read so much that I think I'm officially a booktuber now. This week's book that I'm talking about is Close to the Bone by Stuart MacBride. People who know these books will know that this is not the first book in a series of books about this particular character, which is the Logan McRae novels. And it's very Scottish because obviously it's set in Scotland. This is the 8th book, so I did feel like I was missing something as I was going through, but it worked well as a standalone book, but I feel like I was missing something from the other 7 novels under this character. I'm just going to quickly read you the blurb. Sticks and stones may break your bones. The first body is chained to a stake, strangled and stabbed with a burning tire around its neck. Is this a gangland execution or something much darker? Someone's leaving little knots of bones on D.I. Logan McRae's doorstep, but he's got bigger concerns. Rival drug gangs are fighting over product and territory. 2 teenage lovers are missing. Someone's crippling Asian immigrants, and Logan's been lumbered with an ambitious new detective sergeant and gains the unwelcome attention of the local crime boss. When another body turns up, the similarities between these murders and the plot of a best-selling novel seem like more than a coincidence. And perhaps those little knots of bones are more important than they look. Really good story. It's a really good story in there, and it really does work as a standalone story. But it's obvious there are characters that run through the series, and there were points when I kind of had to reread bits, double check what I was reading and what I wasn't reading. I will say, because it is written by a Scottish author, it is set in Scotland and there are lots of Scottish isms in it. I found myself reading it with a Scottish accent in my head. Now, I'm terrible at a Scottish accent, but in my head it was kind of a light Scottish accent, almost a bit of McGonagall from Harry Potter, that kind of light Scottish accent. And yes, I know that Maggie Smith is actually from Essex. But it was kind of a light Scottish accent to start off with, and then it kind of got harsher. The accent kind of got harsher as I went through the book. And I was very aware there were a lot of comments about women's breasts in it. I was very aware of the references to women's breasts in it, and I don't know if it was just a thing to do with the author or maybe it's something to do with the other books. I don't know. Especially when the main boss in this story was a woman, and there was lots of references to her messing about with her bra straps and wires and stuff, and it was just like, I guess I kind of understood the picture he was trying to paint with the references to that, but at the same time I just thought, is that really the best way to show or describe that message? Editing Debbie here just to say that basically what I'm trying to say is obviously the author's trying to paint the idea of a female character that's kind of one of the boys, and the references to the boobs I think were reminded that she is still a woman. I just feel like it was a weird way to go about painting that message. Anyway, back to the video. Not that long ago there was a thing going around on social media of men describing women's bodies, or men trying to write from a female point of view, which is not what this book is at all. It's all in the third person, but it's done from the point of view from McRae, with a couple of other narrations going through. It starts off with D.I. Logan McRae. He's at his home, his caravan, and he finds a little just collection of bones on his front doorstep, and it all kind of comes off that, and they're trying to figure out a connection with everything else that's going on. It starts off with the bones, and then they find the body, which is the body chained to the stake. It's strangled and stabbed and has a burning tire around its neck. And from there you then learn about 2 missing kids that the police have kind of been ignoring. So they say, right, so, you know, we've got this thing, somebody else has brought up, you know, while we're trying to identify this dead man, other people are kind of coming up and saying, what about the 2 missing kids who are quite possibly still alive and you haven't done anything about it? So they send out the some of the detectives to go and talk to the parent. They're going, is the only reason you're doing this because you were called out? Why did you take so long to start investigating these 2 kids' disappearance? And then you kind of go through and you find how everything is connected, basically. There is kind of an underlying thing that connects all the stories, and it's really clever. And you have this young girl who is just fascinated with a book series, because the very first chapter is a scene from a movie. I will say, reading it felt like a bit of a cinematic experience. As I was reading it, I felt like it read like a comedy detective type show. If you've ever seen the show No Offence, Channel 4 cop drama comedy based in Manchester, it kind of read like I was reading that, because it's kind of like a more darker, kind of a bit grittier, but also got some comedy thrown in. It read like that kind of TV series. Rosalian Isles, that kind of show, but just a little bit grittier because it's set in Scotland. You've got the language. It feels like it could translate well to a gritty police comedy. Yeah, I'll go with that. I did really enjoy it. I'll admit, first couple of chapters I did find a little difficult to get into. I think it's because I was still kind of finding the voice of it, because when I read, I do have this voice in my head that kind of reads the story to me. I know not everybody has that, but that's what I have. Then as I could see the Scottishness coming out of the page, amended the voice in my head to that of a Scottish accent. So I think about 90% of the book I read with a Scottish accent, because I didn't kind of fit those isms until a couple of chapters in. I'm struggling to kind of translate this one. I think it's because of the way it read and the fact that I did read it with a Scottish accent in my head. The fact there were certain points where I kind of didn't like the author. Is that a weird thing to say? Because even though it's not written in the first person, there were certain points as I was reading it when I was just like, I don't like the way that's been described, or I don't like the way that they are portraying certain characters. Maybe it would translate better on a screen, that character, but when you're reading it, it feels a bit condescending. But it didn't take away from the fact that when I finally did get into it, after the first couple of chapters, when I really, really did find the voice of it, I really did enjoy the story. I thought it was really clever how they connected everything, and the way they brought in the other characters' point of view, because throughout it, you're trying to find out if the missing kids are alive or not, and when you find out that the young girl that's missing, Agnes, it starts incorporating her voice as she kind of goes crazy. Because she's so obsessed with this Witchfire series, because she's out there and she's convinced that she's out trying to find witches even though she doesn't really believe in it, kind of thing. And you see that character. It starts off where you feel like you're reading excerpts from the book that she's obsessed with, and then you start to realise that no, she kind of believes she's the main character in it, and you see her connection with the film that is being made of the Witchfinder books. This sounds way complicated, doesn't it? It starts off with them filming the movie version of the book, and then obviously they find this dead guy, and then they realise the connection to the books and the films, and so it's a lot of it you're going through and you're trying to find the connection back to the Witchfinder series, which is the fictional series of books, kind of like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, that kind of thing. You're trying to find that connection all the way through of how does this bit come back to the Witchfinder, and it's clever how they keep that underlining. Keep saying they, it's Stuart MacBride. But it is clever how it keeps bringing you back to the Witchfinder, how it kind of becomes a neat circle in it, and you see his relationship with his workmates, his friends, his family, and there is a twist in there which I don't know if it would be a twist if I had read the other books, but in this case, as I was reading it, there was a conversation happening throughout the book between Logan and a family member, which was turned on its head towards the end, and you kind of understand where his head is at through that conversation. That won't make any sense unless you've read it. So I think I might shut up because I think I'm making this way too complicated. But yeah, it's Close to the Bone by Stuart MacBride. As I said, you know, there were points when the way he described certain things in the book, I kind of didn't like him. But I have a feeling that was done on purpose, and it does and as I said, it does feel like, as you're reading it, well, at least as I read it, I felt like I was reading an episode of a television series. Definitely recommend it if you like a good murder mystery, if you like a good cop show. If you can, try and read it with a Scottish accent. It really does help you, the story along, I think. Because when I didn't have that voice, I found it really hard to get into, but once I found the accent in my head, it started to pick up the pace a bit once I found the voice to read it in. But yeah, so thank you so much for watching. My name is Debbie. I've been talking about this book today. I'll pop a link to this book and possibly where the other books are in the description below. If you aren't subscribed already, please do. There'll be a little reminder somewhere on the screen. I do have quite a lot of books that I'm making my way through at the moment. The next one is Where Rainbows End by Cecilia Ahern. I'm always looking at those because it's on my bedside table. I started reading that. That's going to be a fun one to talk about, actually. I'm only a few chapters in, but I think that's going to be a fun one to talk about once I finished it. But yeah, so thanks for watching. I've been Debbie, and I'll see you next week. Mwah.